Hello and welcome to the SCOUTCAST. I did have a bit of a spiel at the beginning about how reliable certain players are, the likes of Fernandes away or KDB at home to Burnley. But I've just scratched all that and I'm just going to say we have a blank, possibly, and we have developments to do with COVID. So we'll discuss that a bit later. But in the meantime, my name is Joe.
My name is Az.
My name is Karam.
Welcome everyone. Az, what's coming up in the show?
Well, as well as talking about the news of the blank for Villa and Newcastle, we're going to be talking about Man City from our resident expert, Karam, who's going to convince me not to get Mahrez, convince you to sell Sterling, hopefully, Joe, and generally talk to us a bit about Pep Roulette and what that means for the great fixtures coming up, particularly Fulham. Is there a new Holy Trinity in FPL? Everyone's talking about the Holy Trinity, but is there a way we can cover their players? They're my feelings on that, but there are some options emerging, which could potentially lead us to some points from Liverpool and City. We're going to talk about how we can climb the rankings in this tricky season. Should we be looking for differentials when everyone's flocking for kind of the same players? There's fixtures to frisk, captaincy and transfer plans to reveal. And, well, first of all, we're going to look back at a very eventful Game Week 10.
Yes, so just before we do that, there's been some developments today regarding the Friday night game between Newcastle and Villa. So there's been a COVID outbreak amongst the Newcastle ranks, their players and staff. It's so big, this outbreak there. There's so many affected that they've postponed the game. Now, what we don't know at this stage, whether it's going to be rescheduled within Game Week 11, so take place midweek. It also could be rescheduled a completely other game week, so much later. We're talking, far into the future. So that does mean that we have some problems, especially Grealish owners, especially those like me, who have Steer and Martinez as their goalkeeper, so a no playing goalkeeper this week. Then again, if we should be waiting till Friday, I think, because then we'll find out whether it's going to be in midweek. But so for me personally, I potentially have no goalkeeper. I have other issues, as we all do in our teams, so I'm probably resigned to taking a hit, and I think I don't mind taking a hit in a situation whereby you're not going to have anyone playing. So for me personally, I'm looking at goalkeeper replacements, and the absolute two choices for me, money wise, are Meslier at Leeds and McCarthy at Southampton. The reason why is because I did a little bit of research before I came on, and so other people might be in the same boat. I looked at who has got the most clean sheets. Only one has got 5 clean sheets, and that's Mendy at Chelsea. But there's a bunch of players, Meslier, McCarthy, Fabianski, Martinez himself, Lloris and Patricio, who've got 4 clean sheets. So they're getting the points there, but also minutes per save. So I filtered by minutes per save. And Meslier and McCarthy come out top. This is for the whole season, by the way. So in terms of getting save points and clean sheets and value, it's down to Meslier and McCarthy for me. Fabianski's not bad, shout, but if you've got the spare money, but it's 5.1. So that's for me. Az, what are you going to do? You've got Grealish. Have you got any other Villa Newcastle players?
Well, straight into this, are we? Oh God, I don't even know at the moment. I mean, I've got Martinez like you. I guess it's just a case of whether we think Martinez is a keeper. Well, he's a keeper, but I mean a season keeper, or at least up until the next wild card. Or this is an opportunity to move him over to someone like Fabianski or Mendy. I've got Eiling, so Meslier is kind of out. I don't like McCarthy, just pure, just one of those players who I just don't really like. So I'm looking at Mendy and thinking maybe that could be my way into the Chelsea double up in defence, but I'll probably stick with him, to be honest, and just ride out the 0.
Yeah, and what about you, Karam? You've got you've got more. We're going to look at your team in a second.
More.
I'll tell you what. Look. We're going to talk about our Game Week 10 team. So I'll put your team up now because you've got more. So who have you got? You've got. Oh my good lord.
Yeah, potentially half of my team is gone, and I just wildcarded ahead of Game Week 9. So
Lewis as well.
Okay, so I've just for the benefit of our podcast listeners, you got Martinez in goal, Diaz. Who is that? We're looking at Kilman, Chilwell, and then Ziyech, Fernandes, Grealish, De Bruyne, Calvert-Lewin, Watkins, and Vardy. And on your bench, you've got Forster, Cancelo, Lewis. Oh my good lord, and Riedewald. So
got
for this
Karam.
particular week,
too many.
so you've got quite a few.
Cool.
And what are you going to do? Because this is quite a if you find out on Friday, it's definitely off, postponed to another game week.
Yeah. Well, it's not pretty cool from every aspect. We wish the affected players and the staff speedy recovery, but also from a FPL perspective, it hurts. And it turned out that the people who advocated early in the season to have two playing goalkeepers win at the moment, because now I'm in trouble. Watkins is gonna go, I think. Two game weeks of a lot of drama. I can't take more. Blank, then Wolves, and then Burnley. I don't like that. I think there are opportunities around his bracket that might get me points. So I think
Chris Wood back, Karam.
Well, no, I don't think so. Not anytime soon. But yeah, I think now I have 3 from Villa. Lewis. I have Cancelo, who might just gone. And I have Riedewald, the 4.4 rotation risk, who did not play who didn't start last game week. And I have, who else? Yeah, I've got about 7 players in my team that might not play. So I would definitely use my 2 free transfers. I'm going to talk about it at the very end. It's completely different from what I actually planned. Now they look luxury compared to this situation. There's a part of me says, take the nil from Martinez, because that means 2 double game weeks down the line, and it might not be too far from game week 16-17 when I get my second wild card and I want to keep it potentially. Otherwise, I might go for one of the 4-5 goalkeepers. I think additional to the names you mentioned, I think I like Johnston from West Brom, save points machine, good keeper, might get some clean sheets. So yeah, potentially one of those 4-6 million goalkeepers. I might go back to McCarthy, who has been Oliver Kahn since I sold him in my wild card. So yeah, it's still up in the air. I just want to make sure that there is no chance that the game could be arranged to somewhere midweek and stays within game week 11. That's a
Karam, just a couple of people in the chat are absolutely horrified by the state of your team. Is there any part of you that's considering the free hit? Because your team's good, but maybe just not for this week.
Yeah.
Which kind of feels like it might be a good opportunity to use it. Is there any consideration for that?
No, I don't think so. I think there will be a better upside around game week 18 or 19 when we know exactly how the blank and the double game week there. I think that part of my team would potentially look more horrified than now. So I will just, I have 2 free transfers. If I had one, I would probably consider it, but I have 2, so it doesn't make much sense. I can do with a -4 maybe. I can field out 10 or 11 players with a -4. That should be okay. And as you said, I wouldn't get a lot more players that I want that I don't own now. We'll speak later on about the Trinity in the Scoutcast, but I think I have 2 of the main 3 players I want to get ultimately. So I don't see myself free hitting, but potentially I'm gonna make it 3, maybe 4 transfers.
I mean, looking at a team, I would say there are plenty of cheap striking options. Bamford would be the one I would potentially go for on stats and fixtures. Bamford looks a good one for Watkins. You've got to be keeping. I mean, if I had Grealish, I'd just be keeping him. I wouldn't care going in for 10 men. I would just keep him on the bench. Martinez or Forster, if you've got some money left over, could be good there. And maybe it could be time for the move, because Cancelo, you've got a bit of spare money there.
I'll probably pull the trigger on Cancelo. We'll speak about it later on. I would have probably given him the Fulham game, but with this, I think I need his funds to do. Well, I probably would do something else. I might upgrade him. I still have no idea, honestly.
No. The world's your oyster, and I think some of the comments in the chat about the state of your team isn't that you've made bad decisions. That's just completely bad luck that you happen to be invested in a fixture that could possibly be postponed. These are all good assets to have. There
is part of me regret having triple Villa. I think Grealish was a no-brainer, more or less. Martinez, maybe. I think Watkins was a bit too much, but I fancied him to outscore Bamford in the first 2-3 games before I do the switch. Now it looks like that I have to do an extra transfer to correct that decision. So, yeah.
Okay, well, we'll talk more, especially about your moves in City a bit later. But yeah, the events of a potential blank game week have overshadowed beginning a bit. But yeah, you've got the best out of all of us for game week 10. You've got 60 points there, just being through your team. There's only 7 points that separate us all, so we've all done okay this week. As is next with 4-point hit, so 58 points. So yeah, pretty good. Just for the benefit of those listening on the podcast version, you also have Martinez in goal with Forster as your backup, Chilwell, Semedo, Ayling, and then in a 3-5-2 you've got Fernandes, Son, Ziyech, Grealish and Jota, and up front Vardy, who you captained, and Calvert-Lewin, and on your bench Maupay, who surely for the chop, Lamptey, and my man Mitchell, who's permanent on my bench as well. Actually, you must be pretty okay with that. That must have been a green arrow. Although you are muted at this second, as
You're muted.
Okay. Whilst Az sorts out his microphone issues, I will avoid dead air and talk about my
team. There you go. Sorry.
You've been saved talking about my team for a second.
Must have hit the mute button.
So yeah, Az, your team, you must be pretty happy with that. Green arrow?
Yeah, pretty happy. Went up 400,000 places, so not quite into the top million club yet, but knocking on the door. It's my 4th green arrow in a row as well. So things are looking up at least a little bit. Did it with no City as well, so I went into that City game thinking this could be, are we going to see another 1-0 or 2-0 win for them, or are they really going to let loose? And 5 goals for City and only 10 points for De Bruyne actually feels a bit of a win for me not owning him. It was not pleasant watching that and not owning him or any of them at all. So yeah, that's the issue is, it's the same as every season. There's so much risk that comes from getting their players, that isn't De Bruyne. There's so much potential reward. So it's just kind of what I do with that. But the trouble is I'm happy. Like I look at that team, and apart from Semedo and Maupay on the bench, I'm actually really happy with the squad. So it feels like I'm going looking for like more points in, I've got to get Salah back in, I've got to get De Bruyne in, and it means I'm going to have to lose some of the players have actually been doing really well for me. So it's a tricky part of the season, this, for everyone, and I'm not entirely sure what
it's a tough decision that all us fantasy managers face, where you've got good players and you want to swap them for other good players, but then
exactly,
do you do that move? There's such a risk doing that. Could be a reward.
It's rare for me to look at my team though and be generally quite happy with everyone, because normally you look at your team and you think, oh, he's blanked last 3 weeks in a row, he's got rubbish fixtures, but I don't know, like there's no one there that really stands out to me that like I have to get rid of. It's like really stinking up my team, apart from Semedo, who has been absolutely atrocious for me since I got him in all those weeks ago.
Well, we'll talk a bit later when we talk about this so-called Holy Trinity and what you'll perhaps do as an alternative to them if you don't go down that path of getting these very expensive heavy hitters. I'll go next. Here's my one. 53 points. I'm fairly happy. I've gone casual for the last month or so, and I'm going to stick with that. And that doesn't mean make no transfers, do nothing, do no research. It just means investing as little amount of time as I humanly can in my team. Obviously, I do research for this, and we research and have a chat away on Twitter, etc., with people about fantasy football. But when it comes to my own team, I just want to make a move on Friday, not really think about it much before, and see where I am. Little bit more thought this week because there's no Villa Newcastle. But for the benefit of those listening on the podcast, I've got Martinez in goal, Justin, Chilwell and Ayling. Ayling, 3 clean sheets out of the last 5 for me, so I'm very happy with him. Souček, De Bruyne, Fernandes and Sterling. So we'll talk about my views on him a bit later. Calvert-Lewin, Kane and Bamford. Like you, Az, I'm fairly happy with most of them. But I am in a fortunate position of having the very rotatable Sterling in my side.
Yeah, he
so
stands
it's
out.
a very, very easy move to me to Salah this week. And so I think I may do that, but we'll talk about that a bit later. And we'll talk about that Holy Trinity. I'll have it, and that's what I want. And I want one of Kane and Son. I've gone for Kane, just the way I am at the moment. But I think if people like yourself have got Son in, the advice to watch the captaincy video I did earlier today with David. A lot of people thinking, oh, De Bruyne for the captaincy this week. But there are some other options, and Arsenal are very weak on their right, and they come up against a very strong player in Son on the Spurs left. So that could be something, and it's North London derby, so could be good for Son this week. So yeah, that's my team. As we talk in the Scoutcast, I'll talk about some of the things I'm deciding on, but I'm definitely very keen on getting this holy trinity of De Bruyne, Fernandes, and Salah. And the rest is a bit of trimmings. So we'll see if there's any potential move up the rankings with those trimming type players in a bit. Have we got time for a quick rough with a smooth? You got any?
We do.
Yes.
Yeah, and I missed it last week.
No.
I missed doing my rough with the smooths. But yeah, they're back, and it was a good week. We've seen some horror stories from everyone in the community. First few weeks, I've been in almost hysterics, reading out some of these, but generally speaking, it was a good week for most people, and it was really characterized by some really, really good hits. So hits seem to pay off this week, which I found quite interesting. So before I get into those, firstly, we had a tweet, and it's one of the best single moves I think I've ever seen in all my years of playing FPL. He tagged you and I, Joe, at the Real Lambs. Ziyech out, Mahrez in. Just
what time did he do it?
And he did it just before the deadline. Was it 1 minute before the deadline?
1 minute before the deadline.
Yeah. Beautiful. So you've taken out a player who. I mean, Ziyech is a good pick. He could have got something from that game. He didn't. He blanked. You bring in a player who gets a hat trick. It's just you can't get much better than that. Anyway, have a listen to some of these. So I've got 3 -8s for you here. So Stew-footed, he took out Pedence. Okay, he scored a good goal, but he also took out Zaha, who didn't play, and Trent, who didn't play, and he bought in Mahrez, he bought in Diaz, and he bought in Jota for a -8.
Nice.
All 3 players he bought in got returns, including Mahrez. Obviously, he got the hat trick. Mahrez. I never considered Mahrez. I can't even pretend that I would have gone for him as coverage for De Bruyne because I hadn't seen anything really from him apart from that goal he scored against Leicester ages ago. He's looked really poor. But for these people who got him in, fair play, great foresight. Saka me sideways. This is a good one. Barkley, Zaha, and Kane out. Bought in De Bruyne, Jota, and Bamford. So a -8, but obviously got in KDB, captained him, got in Jota, Bamford blanked, but he's in place now for the good run. And the Dragon, Mopé took out -1, Kane and Zaha, bought in Wilson. I mean, how's that for foresight? Getting Wilson back after his injury scare for all those points. KDB, captain, and Bamford as well for a -8. There's 3 -8s there, which all paid, all 3 completely different strategies as well. Which all paid off really nicely. A couple of not so good ones. So not such a good hit from Kamsi. Semedo and Rashford out for a -4. It doesn't sound too bad. Rashford just got the assist and Semedo got. Guess who he bought in?
Cancelo
Sterling.
and Sterling.
Oh my goodness.
Cancelo and Sterling. So he gets 2 City players in for that Burnley match, and both played no minutes. Ouch. Time Lord, he sold Mopé, so just like me, he's fed up with Mopé. He sells him for Watkins for a hit. And the reason why that is such a painful rough is because Mopé gets -1 in his game. And then you think, well, surely, I mean, if Watkins just gets 2 points, then at least that's pretty much paid for the hit. Yeah. And he misses a penalty and then has that offside call. Absolutely brutal for Time Lord. And lastly, Shirtless, he bought in Sterling for Son, which I just think is just quite a nasty one. He only got 44 points. He was the lowest scorer I could find on the board. So apologies to Shirtless for your poor week.
Okay, before we move on to the first topic, just mention about the mini leagues. You know when you got a mini league and it's left open, and then some guys, nearly top of the world, just steams in and takes number one spot from everyone. Well, that's us. So, congratulations to Mahrez Hussein. He is top of both our community members and open to all leagues. New entry there. He's 7th in the world. So yeah, he was 7th in the world. He's now 24th in the world. I do apologise. I've over egged him, but yeah. So he's only 24th in the world. So hard luck.
The league, give them a chance.
Hard luck everyone else in the league who thought they were top for that week, because Mahrez's come sweeping in 24th in the world. This is his 4th season, and his previous highest finish is 733,000. So hopefully that gives a lot of hope to everyone who perhaps has never had a good finish or a good start or been up there before. But yeah, this guy's in the top 30 in the world. Karam, let's move on to the first topic. City rotation, far away.
Yeah. So first 8 game weeks, only 10 goals. The last game week they scored 5. So we think the Man City are back to potentially their best. Kevin De Bruyne again looks the obvious pick, just outstanding. He cannot play bad in any game. But who else? Is he the only one we can look at? Who else we can bring in? We are back looking at Man City, but of course Pep Roulette as well is spinning faster than the speed of the sound. So I like that from you, Joe. We've got some community questions, and of course, for reasons unknown, that's an account name. Is Sterling a hold for Fulham, or should us owners cut our losses and get Salah or another sure starter instead? That's perfectly for you, Joe. Chips and Chops is asking, could Torres be the new Jota, who is already the new Foden? And what now for Foden owners? Nuclear Atoms, how will Pep Roulette change around the Champions League games? We know that they have a qualifier, but they did not win the group yet. Maybe they will do it tonight. Confessed Leeds fan is asking, when is the best time to get Aguero in? Is Aguero back, actually? So, yeah, a lot of questions about Man City, and perfectly to start with you, Joe, with Sterling that you own.
Okay, so
what do you think?
Well, I've got Sterling in for a few weeks. This has been, if you would talk about bad choices that you make consistently every season, one I do is I plan ahead too much, and I need to, not necessarily just react each week, but I need to plan less. So I got Sterling in for this run, and during that time he did nothing, which was okay. I was fine with, but then he just gets dropped against Burnley. The comments from Pep seem to indicate, and I don't know you never trying to second guess Pep Roulette is really tricky, but it seems to be the gist of it is if you're scoring lots of goals, you're in. If you're in defence and you're making lots of mistakes, you're out. And so. But then I don't know what to make of it, because Mahrez has not been tearing it up, and then he suddenly eases a hat-trick out of nowhere against Burnley. Sterling linked up really well with Foden, assisted his goal in Europe the week before. I thought he was going to play, so he's not. So I don't know what to make of it. I think that I will move him on. I have exact money to move him on to Salah. To me, that seems the sensible move. I will have to take a hit to remove Martinez as well, but this is long term, and I can't bear this roulette any longer. De Bruyne has been rested in Europe tonight, so I'm 99.9% certain he's going to start, and he's a very good captaincy shout this week. The same for Mahrez as well, rested as well midweek. I think he's a good option for this coming week. Whether he is, going forward, I'm not so sure about. But Sterling playing. So unless Sterling gets a brace and a good brace and a hat-trick, I don't see how he's going to get his place back, because there's so many options. So we've got some stats up on the screen at the moment. It shows, the power of De Bruyne. This is the last 4 game weeks. De Bruyne top for goal attempts and chances created and expected goal involvement and expected goals as well. And he started 4 times. Yeah, he's the guy. He's the guy to get, basically. But it's who who you try and cover him with, which is something I know Az might be thinking about, and or also who you get in for City to go alongside him. And as you can see, Torres isn't being too shabby. 11 goal attempts. He's second for expected goal involvement last 4. Mahrez himself, 10 chances created, 8 goal attempts. Bit of everything. Goals and assist potential. Jesus looks to get the nod over Aguero at the moment. But then when is Aguero going to come back? Too much uncertainty for me. And then Sterling and Rodri is above Sterling. I mean, that says it all. Sterling's only had 2 starts, but unless he pulls out some kind of miracle in Europe tonight, and that's going to be going on whilst we're chatting, the simple answer is I'm going to move Sterling on. I can't bear it anymore. Yeah, so that's me.
Fair enough. It's really weird because Sterling has been really essential part of the City attack over the last few seasons, and he has been the undroppable one after KDB. I still can't understand fully how Sterling might have lost his place. I started to believe in this, but just like on paper, it was not expected at all. As I'll come to you next, you have no City attack. So is KDB the one you go for? Is there anyone you think he's alternative? And some questions, of course, about Foden, who even some people started the season with him and then carry him until now. It's Fulham next week. Shall they keep him or just cut the losses and go?
He's like Sterling. He's got to go. I think. I mean, at the start of the season, I was pretty hyped up by Foden. I thought with Silva leaving, I thought there's no real excuse now for Pep not to play him. And it's pretty criminal when you think he hasn't started the last 5 matches for City. So I don't know how much more of a kick owners need to finally ship him. You've even got Jota there now around the same price, who would just be the kind of the easiest move ever to make. There's no case for keeping him. He started again tonight. You can't rely on him to start in any match. It's just not worth it. And then at the other end of the scale, you've got Sterling, who's premium price, and when you've got so many players, doing well around that premium bracket, there's just no point in keeping him. I don't think. I think if you've got him, you move him to De Bruyne if you haven't got De Bruyne, or you get in Fernandes or Salah and move. I just think that's such a simple move. I mean, I'm keen to avoid this kind of term of like coverage, because I hate that phrase. To me, you look at a player individually and you think, can this player score a good amount of points for the price that you pay for them? So Jota to me doesn't cover Salah. Salah is you should be looking at Salah compared to De Bruyne, compared to Fernandes, compared to Vardy, compared to Kane. He's a captain option. Does he outscore those players? I still think he's the standout player to own in the entire game, regardless of whether or not you have Jota. Mahrez is an interesting one, because I think Mahrez, we've seen this from Pep. We literally saw this last season when Pep said Mahrez was undroppable and in the form of his life, and then benched him the next game. From what I'm reading from Pep, though, it just seems to be a bit different this year. It seems like he's kind of trying to stamp his authority a bit more and trying to get a bit more from the players who've had a pretty poor start to the season. And like you said, Karam, I'm surprised Mahrez has started so many games, considering he hasn't really looked that great or scored that many goals. But for this Fulham match, he's rested again tonight. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that he plays against Fulham. It would be such a backtrack if he didn't play in that game. So I think at least for this game, Mahrez is a good option over De Bruyne if you don't own him. It's then what you do long term. And I'm looking at my team, and I've got Fernandes in. I'm going to be getting Salah in. I'm going to have Son as well. And it might be KDB's the one that I don't have, or I don't look to get. I think he's an absolutely amazing option. Don't get me wrong, but I'm looking at Fernandes and Salah, and I'm just thinking these two are the ones for me. They're just so involved, and KDB always has that potential just to drop back and control the midfield a bit more. And there's so many options now for City coming in and coming out that I think the points are going to be shared more than we might have seen in previous seasons. So yeah, I'm probably going to be City-less. I'm definitely getting one in for this Fulham game, but then I might be rocking without any City for the long term, which feels very strange.
Not even a defender?
Yeah,
with
probably
this
a
incredible
defender.
run, yeah,
Yeah, probably a
even
defender.
for the defense, we didn't speak about it so far, but who, apart from Ederson, who is, we know, overpriced, but is there anybody else apart from maybe Diaz?
I like I like I like Diaz. Diaz is the one I'd get. He's got a benching coming, and it could well be against Fulham. But I think I think long term wise, he's going to play the most minutes along with Walker. We spoke a bit about Walker before we came on. He's a lot of money, and you don't get too much from him other than the worldie every now and then, and maybe the odd assist. And you're paying quite a bit. He doesn't. He doesn't really feel like a premium defender to me. Whereas I think Diaz is still a good price at 5.6.
Just want to bring, sorry, Cam. I just want to bring in a couple of people from the chat here. I was reading. This just sums up the feeling about Sterling, by the way, and also pretty much any other Man City option at the moment when it comes to rotation. So Mitesh says Sterling also started in Champions League tonight. Joe, you got to sell him. The very next comment is from Youssef, who says, watch Sterling play against Fulham and have a hat-trick. So there we go. And that's what you're going to think about. Mahrez, Cancelo, Sterling, Aguero, you name it, except for De Bruyne, I think. But yeah, I just wanted to bring those guys into the chat because they just sum up what we're all thinking about City.
The thing with Sterling, I mean, he's 4.4% owned. So even if you sold him and he scored a hat-trick and the player you bought in got nothing, which if you're bringing in Fernandes or De Bruyne, seems unlikely with the form they're in anyway. It's not even. I mean, it'd tick you off a little bit that you could have had the hat trick, but really, rank wise, it's not going to be.
Yeah, you just got to move on. If I very likely sell Sterling for Salah, I'm just going to move on. You know, Salah's get his hat trick, it's 20 points. Sterling will get his hat trick, 20 points. I won't have captained him. I'm going to move on, forget about that, and just move on to the next game week. That's what you got to do.
You will not get the advantage that might offers you by climbing the rank, which is another topic we'll discuss later on.
Yes.
But you will not, you will not lose rank.
I'll better sleep at night. I won't lose sleep, but I might lose rank. Probably sums up my fantasy career.
All right. So I mean, it's really difficult now to know for certain or to even try and second guess Pep. We've been doing this for almost 5 years and we never got it right. So I will not pretend that I will get it now. But I've been listening to every quote from him the last few days ahead of the Champions League games, post-match press conferences, and trying to make sense of anything really. Nothing makes sense to Pep, but just try and understand him a bit. And he has been. I've never seen him that critical against his players as I've seen him now, because he has been always praising the team or being critical against the team, but now he's been like naming out players like Sterling is not scoring goals, Jesus is not scoring goals, players who are scoring goals obviously makes sense. Okay, they would keep playing. So I haven't seen him that critical against the players, and that's probably because they did not score enough. That's not Man City that has been like this for the last few seasons. 10 goals only in their 8 games. So it strikes a bit looking at the attack. And I think KDB is by far the standout player. Now, where you should look at elsewhere, probably punts. I wouldn't pick any player like long term. I would just go for punts like Mahrez for next week, like Jesus for next week. Aguero is out. I don't think he's coming back in the next. I don't think he will make the derby. He's not even training with the team. He had a setback and he's left out with the squad. So Jesus for the next 2 or 3 maybe good, but don't put too much hope. He is also sort of like, for me at least, he is a frustrating player. He's not explosive FPL wise, but I want to focus a bit more about the defense really, because I have Cancelo and I think many other managers have him as well. The issue that we didn't have Zinchenko, we didn't have Mendy, and that's why Cancelo was playing on the other side of where he naturally plays. And what I noticed, really, and that might actually affected Sterling negatively, is that Cancelo is not a player who can stretch the pitch. He is more an inverted insider. He cuts inside, goes to the penalty box and create chances, crosses or so on, or even take a shot. And that's why Sterling was the one who was offering the width and trying to cut inside, but he scored only 2 goals this season. He hasn't looked that close to the goal. And you put the stats here, even Rodri might have as good stats as him. But with Mendy fit, he's unstoppable in stretching the pitches. He's putting out the crosses, and that goal is a big deal in my opinion with Mendy. And he said, I think before Burnley, he said, we will try again. We will put more strikers in the box and we will try to score more goals. And that's exactly what he did with Mahrez and Torres. And I think that the best 3 now for us is Torres, Mahrez, and Jesus until Aguero is back. Those are the players scoring goals, and those probably the play. I think Torres tonight is playing a striker, and he adapted to a shift maker striker, and has done that very well. So I think Cancelo is gone for me, just because of this. I think he will get the Champions League games where it's pretty much done, and I think between now and the first week of January they will play every 3 days, including the cups, including the last round of the Champions League, and that's where he can afford to, I wouldn't say rest players, because he also said if players think that I'm resting them, then they made a mistake. So I think he will play his best players, and I don't think that Cancelo and Sterling are there. Although surprisingly, Cancelo was the second most creative player in that team who was not scoring goals. So I just cannot get why he is dropping him. But I think Mendy is back. I think he's a sell to me. Whether that before Fulham, I don't know. It depends really if you have enough cover.
The stats the stats we have on the screen just bear out in stat form what you've just said as well, Karam, there about the best formation they've got in terms of getting more strikers into the box, and it shows De Bruyne is there as the creative guy, Torres, Mahrez, Jesus, there they are in their goal attempts, and then there's a big old drop off. And then it's not Sterling, it's Rodri. That's the drop. That's the sort of, you're looking at a Rodri drop. That's a big drop. That's like going Dendonka deep with the City. That's pretty big. That's pretty telling, really. So I think you're right. I think it's just going to come down to what we our attitude to risk, which is something we've always had since Pep has been taking charge of City.
Yep. I think in summary, I think it's worth to have KDB and Diaz for the long term. I just don't know who's the third one. I wish I can tell. I really want the triple up for the long run, but I just cannot tell. Apart from those 2.
Okay, well, let's expand the discussion a bit and talk about this Holy Trinity, because of course KDB is in that. The others are Fernandes and Salah. The reason we're calling them the Holy Trinity. It's a phrase we've always had at Fantasy Football Scout. Whenever you get 3 usually big hitting midfielders who are performing. In the old days, you were talking Gerrard, Lampard, and Ronaldo. It started to move up to 4 when Fabregas joined that ranks, and then one season we had Michu as well, so then it became 5. But essentially you're talking these are mega players that are sure starters. They're essential to everything. They are listed as midfielders. They are as attacking as you like, and they've got huge stats to show for it, and they've just got huge expected goal involvement. So we've got some stats up on the screen. Expected goal involvement there. Looking at those last 4 matches, these are Fernandes, 4 big chances, 4 goals. Expected involvement 4. Created 9 chances as well. 7 shots on target during that time. Salah. I've done this by matches because of course Salah missed a match because of COVID, so rather than game weeks we've done it by matches, but he's not too shabby. 4 big chances there, 2 goals, expected to be involved in 3 of those, 7 big chances. So you're seeing these are good stats, chances, goal attempts, goal involvement. And De Bruyne is there as well, just the 1 big chance, but we think there's going to be an upturn, that form's going to follow fixtures. No goals as yet. His goal is imminent, and expected goal involvement is 2.5 there. So, and 11 chances created. Lots and lots of stats, and all they say, these guys are really good. We had some questions on these lots. So, Salman, is Bruno, Salah, KDB are the Holy Trinity to go for? Bilal Faradi, is it finally time to go big in midfield and build a team around these 3 players? Olsen looked at it a different way. Does the emergence of Fernandes mean that we don't now need KDB and Salah? Because you can basically captain one of them each week. Fernandes, for example, especially away, very, very reliable. And Toblerone asks, does the likes of Calvert-Lewin, Bamford, Ings, Wilson, Watkins, perhaps not those later two this week, mean we can go heavy in midfield? So I'll go to you first, Karam, because I know Az is thinking in terms of sort of the alternatives to some of these. But Karam, are you looking to get these three in? And if not, why not?
Yeah, I think it makes sense to have these three. What is even nice with all of them, and they are all on penalties, so that's always a plus to our picks, and they are the best picks in their teams and potentially the best three picks in the league. But myself, I have already Bruno and KDB. Not yet Salah, because I have Vardy up top, and Vardy to someone and upgrade the midfield to Salah is on the cards for sure. I think the COVID issue with Salah made me decide to go, of course, without him on the wild card, and just fancy Vardy on the nice run, which has been disappointing, to be honest, so far. So I don't know how far I can wait before I get rid of Vardy and get Salah in. Definitely, I want a Liverpool cover for Fulham. I think Salah is the one. I go for the cover. I think Jota is a very nice pick, but I wouldn't take him over Salah. I would take him with Salah. Yeah. It's sort of like where we want to double up on City. It's KDB and someone. I wouldn't go Foden and say, oh, he covers KDB. And that's the same story, I think, on Salah. He is the more who will start every match. Jota might get the odd one, might get rotated with Firmino or somewhere else. So you always have that rest feeling of Jota, of missing out on a game where he can return as well. He's not nailed on 90 minutes every game. That's. I
was going to say, you raised the point about Vardy. There's going to be a lot of people with Vardy in their team, and they're going to be disappointed with his performance at home last week. Do have a look at the captaincy video just recorded with David. It's on the YouTube channel. Vardy is much better away. He plays Sheffield United. Sheffield United's defence is awful. Thankfully, they have an awful not an awful goalkeeper. They have a non-Dean Henderson goalkeeper, and of course he is a Sheffield Wednesday fan. So if I had Vardy, I'd be captaining him this week. I do not own Vardy.
Would you over KDB?
I would captain him if I owned him. I don't. I have Kane. If Kane was injured, I would get Vardy in and captain him. But Vardy, I don't want to remove Kane myself. But for you, with Vardy, basically what I'm saying is don't get rid of Vardy for anyone this week. Maybe the week after, but this looks like a really good Vardy week to me.
Well, that's good news. Without the Newcastle Villa news, I would have put Vardy on the shopping list.
Yeah, he's really good.
Because we are fortunate this season. Yeah, we are fortunate this season with so many strikers are returning up top, so you can actually afford going big in midfield with those three plus Grealish potentially, and maybe Ziyech even, or Jota. So but he might get another game for sure. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna put a slightly different picture up on the screen because I'll come to Az now, because you're thinking of going for some of this Holy Trinity and maybe avoiding others. So what I've done is I've expanded the table out to include Jota, Mahrez and Rashford. I picked Rashford out as the slightly cheaper alternative that people might consider to Fernandes. And for those stats there, you can see, so we've spoken about Fernandes, Salah, De Bruyne, and then there's a mighty old drop-off down to Jota, who's not doing too badly though. I think Jota's probably the pick out of the three alternatives, Jota, Mahrez and Rashford. It's only 6.8, 3 big chances, 3 goals. He's expected to be involved in 2, so marginally lucky, but not lucky in terms of unsustainable. This guy is good. He's on good form. Mahrez is quite far down there. He's had 2 big chances. He scored 3 goals. We saw against Burnley, but his expected goal involvement is just under 2. Whereas for De Bruyne, you're looking getting towards 2.5, 3. Salah up to 3, and then Fernandes up to 4. And Rashford just can't cut it compared to Fernandes. If if money obviously is an object, but I would say that my personal view is that Fernandes expected goal involvement of 4 over the last 4 weeks, and Rashford's barely 2. Yeah, it's just not the same. It's worth spending more. But Az, what do you think? Because you are considering some of these, so what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, if I'm wildcarding, I can't wildcard because I've used it. But if I was wildcarding, the first three names on my team would be Fernandes, Salah, and De Bruyne. The thing is, the trouble is, for most of us, it's not quite as easy as that, because in order to get in these 3 players, we have to move out players who all have potential of also doing well, and we've seen them doing well. So you mentioned Vardy. Well, I got slated a second ago on the chat because I'm saying I'm not going to get De Bruyne. The only way for me to get De Bruyne is to move Vardy out for a hit. And it just doesn't feel like the week to do it, because Sheffield United are bottom of the league, and they've just hit the record for the worst ever start to a Premier League season. So
I'm massively shaking my head at that move. I just would not.
As much as I think De Bruyne is a great option against Fulham, I also think Vardy is a great option against Sheffield United. And when you add to the fact that, okay, say Fernandes was playing Liverpool, and you might not quite trust Vardy just yet with the captaincy, because we've seen him against Fulham not really performing, but Fernandes isn't against Liverpool. Fernandes is against West Ham. So you've got another strong captain option to go for if you do dodge De Bruyne. And this is what I'm finding, is that it's quite... I think, last week was interesting for people who had Spurs players, because they had Chelsea away. And it was a good week for people just to say, okay, this is a good week to sell them, because they're probably not going to get any returns. And if you did that and you bought in anyone, if you bought in any of these other big hitters we're talking about, you got points straight away. The next 2 weeks are trickier. A lot trickier for that, so it's riskier. It's a lot riskier, and of course there's huge reward, but there's also big risk. And to me, my priority really, I've got Fernandes in place, who I think if you don't have should be the number 1 target to go for, because he looks set to break records this season. He's just absolutely relentless. But second to me, to pair in terms of captaincy, in terms of goal threat, in terms of playing for the best team in the league, in terms of everything, has to be Salah. And not having him and watching that Brighton game was torture. I mean, not having De Bruyne was torture as well, but Salah was particularly hard.
Being a Brighton fan as well, you had we had that feeling as well. But yeah, we got away with it. Every time I see a game with Salah playing and I don't own him, I get away with it if he gets anything less than 10 points.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I said at the start of the podcast that I liked my midfield. I'm looking at my midfield. I'm thinking, really, Ziyech and Son. I like them a lot. I think Ziyech is probably the first one to go, because I think he does have a tendency to drop quite deep, and he's just such a great player. But I do worry about him long term as an FPL pick. And Son is obviously fantastic and can score huge hauls, but up against the likes of Salah and De Bruyne, I do think they are kind of lacking. So they're not people who I particularly want to sell, but I think there is an upside in potentially moving them on. So I'm not against it, but I just don't think we need to be really ripping up teams -8s, for these players when we've got other players who can do well. And I proved this week, I mean, De Bruyne, if you're not captaining them anyway, how much does a 10 or 15 point haul hurt when you've got other players who are doing well for you? It's all about your total points at the end of it. And if your total points matches someone who's got the Holy Trinity and your squad is more balanced and you've got other players in, then you're all right. You can only captain one of them. And I think between Salah and Fernandes, you've got your captains covered right up until the end of the season if they stay fit.
Yeah, I think 2 could. I mean, for me, some of those other players, I mean, out of the other players I can't afford, because I'm going to have Kane, Salah, De Bruyne and Fernandes, is Grealish is the one that I think, oh God, I wish I had Grealish. But the rest of them, your Ziyech's and even Jota, I can take or leave, really, to be honest. But it really is Grealish I would put into this category, really, as a must, because he's so central to everything, and he can score and he can assist. And
they've got a good run.
And they've got double game weeks coming up. That's a move I need to make at some point. I'm going to keep saying it till game week 38, but I do need to get Grealish in at some point. But the rest of them I can take or leave, really. There's so many other cheap options, I think. I was just looking at the fixtures as well in terms of captaincy. I think captaincy is key to these three guys here. So looking at the fixtures, Man City have Fulham, so KDB on paper, a good option there. Liverpool have Wolves, and Man U away, and have West Ham, and they're away there. So Fernandes away is also a good option. But then Liverpool play Fulham, so the better option there. That's when the Manchester derby takes place. Very handy. Then Man City got West Brom at home, while Liverpool have Tottenham. And then Liverpool have Crystal Palace away. Man City have Southampton away. So these are not bad fixtures. And then Man U have Leeds at home, so they're pretty good. And then you've got Liverpool West Brom, and then Liverpool against Newcastle you could do. And then game week 17, this takes you up to Manchester United, Fernandes against Villa, or Liverpool against Southampton, and I believe Kane plays Leeds that day as well, or that week, but it's certainly around that time. So as you can see with them, as part of my being casual thing, I don't have to worry about, I can just sleep at night. With these three guys in, I think I can just handle it, and I've just got some other blokes who I hope get me some points around them. But yeah, getting these three in I think is my priority. And I think anyone else who just wants to sleep and just think of other things like, their job or their family and all those kinds of things rather than their fancy team, just get these three guys in and go to bed. That's my view on them as well.
Unless you've got Vardy.
Unless you got Vardy, but I got Kane. So what? So Kane or Vardy? So once again, I'm thinking about pricing, and I do want to have an expensive striker whilst they are still performing, of which we think Kane will continue doing, and I certainly think Vardy will this week. But I guess it sort of brings us on to the next topic, which is about rising up the rankings. So my mentality of getting these three in and going to bed may mean that I don't actually rise up the rankings, because these guys are going to get more popular each week. The effective ownership is going to get huge, and I might be missing out on some of those other players that you were alluding to. But yeah, anyway, rising up the rankings. I've got a picture of the Chelsea defence up on the screen, so that might give a clue to perhaps a way to rise up the rankings. What's this about, Az?
Also, they have risen up the rankings, haven't they? From being a bit rubbish at the start of the season to suddenly being one of the best teams in the league. So a lot of people are struggling. There's people down in the 2, 3, 4 million mark. Not mentioning any names, who shouldn't be there.
Oh yeah, I'm around the 2 million mark. I've gone up about.
Not that far. Not that far. I can't help you to get to 1 million.
I was over 4 million 3 weeks ago. So
there's plenty of people struggling this year. It's a particularly hard season. So I guess the questions are kind of how do you breach the top 2 million, 1 million, 2 million? Asked Robbo. Freud Haverson says, is Cavani a good differential? So really looking at these kind of left field picks. FPL Fatboy says, could a double or a triple up on Chelsea defence be a good way to climb the rankings? A good replacement for Karam's triple failed Liverpool defence. Ouch. I'll just quickly say that my take on it is that I from being there, last two seasons, from being ranked around 2 million at this stage, how I ended up getting into the top 100k was not getting in players like Cavani and not trying to force my way into differential picks. So getting Jota over Salah, getting Mahrez over De Bruyne, getting Rashford over Fernandes, and not getting these clearly obvious players, not having a strong captaincy pick, ignoring the likes of Grealish and going for Barkley instead. These are the ways that your rank gets worse and not better. You need to play like you would do normally, and you'd be surprised at just how playing sensibly can get you out of a bad position. And I know that's really boring, and I know people want me to say get Cavani and captain him, but there's a long way to go. And I mean, I didn't have De Bruyne this week, and I had Fernandes, and I captained Vardy, so I captained the wrong person. I didn't have De Bruyne. I basically got all my points from Fernandes and Grealish, and I went up 400,000 places. So you don't need to be doing crazy maverick things just to get your rankings. That's my advice. Play it sensible, identify the best targets and get them in, just like you would do if you were ranked 10k. Karam, what do you reckon? Any top tips for people struggling?
Well, I mean, speaking of the defense, I'm not the best person to advocate on the triple up of any team. Tried the Liverpool defense based on like numbers, and it failed miserably. And now I have the double City defense, and it's not clicking yet. So I do think though that the double up on Chelsea, for example, could be a viable option, especially with their prices. They're not really expensive if you get James, who I think personally is even 90% nailed on now. But yeah, Mendy, for example, at 5.1 could offer really good value. In addition to Chilwell, of course. Since game week 5, only David McGoldrick scored against Chelsea, who actually scored 4 goals in the Premier League, 3 against Chelsea. So there's something in it.
Wow.
But he's the only one. I mean, it's incredible run, and Chelsea have been putting some good stats, defensive stats from last season, but they were conceding much because of Kepa. But yeah, I think it's a good way there. Joe was speaking about getting the 3 and go to bed, and yeah, he might. I actually think there is more into it to climb the ranking, even with those 3. How to get the correct captain each game week. It's a crucial part in it, and if it takes to get these 3, then get them, because that would mean that the template is so strong that you cannot dodge it. I play a couple of other fantasy games, the Scottish league and the Norwegian league, and there are a lot of template players that you just cannot think of selling them. And I would say these 3 probably are similar to this, and I think there are a lot of points to be gained from KDB in particular. I think he's still really low. It's not highly owned. He's about 20% now. He was about 16-17%. So you can still make gains there. I wouldn't necessarily say that Cavani is the best way to climb the rankings, but certainly some players who are, I think coming back, we spoke enough about Man City. As much as they offer risks of rotation and frustration and piss off, they are very low total selected by that they can give you huge gains. Like Diaz, you feel like the whole world owns Diaz. He's 2.6%. Sterling, he has to click at some point. Those players, just you need to think about getting them at the right time. I would also say that don't worry too much about the rank now, because it's really close that you can make 500k by just a good game week. I think by game week 16, 17, where you are close to half of the season, you start to assess whether you are expected to have a good season or not. Last season, I just like from last season, for example, I finished around the 40k, but I was 300k at the lockdown. So in 9 game weeks, I have made a huge gains, and that's an enough period to really climb up the rankings. It's just you have to. When we say patience, we say okay, trust the process, but that's really it. Like, do your own research, trust that the judgments, and the points will come.
With them, I was going to say, Karam.
Yeah.
I mean, one way. Although playing sensible is a good way. I mean, you do need to get some differentials now and again, and it seems a good place to bring forward the usual ask about a differential. So each week we pick a differential under 5% next 4 game weeks. We've had mixed success. I tried to persuade Josh last week to not go for Harvey Barnes, who promptly was benched and then scored. So what do I know?
Yeah.
And so, Karam, you've had a quite okay success. You picked Jesus, who unfortunately got injured, but that's nothing wrong with that's just one of those things. And then you also picked Cancelo, who's now dropped, but you've had a good run with him so far. So who's your next pick?
I wish I haven't had picked Jesus, because I think this is the perfect time to pick him rather than early in the season. I think he's just 1.5% with Aguero out, but yeah, I wouldn't go for him now because I already picked him. I've thought a lot about it, and we spoke briefly about him, and I might get a lot of looks here. But because he is 5.5 striker, he has the high line Southampton next game week, and Fulham and Sheffield United in the next 3. So the 3 in the next 4. So why not 0.3% selected by is Danny Welbeck.
Yes.
Pitching to the right people, Karam.
Yes.
And I mean, he
agree.
Good, right? You both are Brighton fans, so
yes.
you cannot go against me, can you? So as much as there are a lot of good strikers, I totally understand that it's really hard to fit him in. But if you look at the next 4, I fancy him at 5.5. He started the last few games when he was ready and moved to Brighton. If he keeps his fitness up to the level, he looked good as well. I watched a bit of a Brighton last game against Liverpool and the games before that. He was okay. He was good. So at 5.5, if you really look at, and I can, for my team formation, I can get the 3 of Fernandes, KDB, and Salah, potentially having a DCL around the 8 million mark now with Welbeck. So I don't necessarily see that he's by far the best budget striker, no, but he put out some good stats. I think he had let me get the numbers here. But until I did that, what do you think? I mean, could he be someone?
I think I think Danny Welbeck is a great shout because he does because
wow, I'm gonna get a clip of that, Joe.
Yeah, Danny Welbeck is a great shout because it feeds on from the conversation we've just had about the need to try and squeeze in these 3 massive heavy hitters. Also, people are considering having Vardy and Kane as well as those, and a reasonable defence. And in order to do that, you've got to go budget. And Brighton have okay fixtures next few. Welbeck's look good. 5.5. I think it's a good one. Click away.
Total of 8 goal attempts, 6 in the box, and 3 big chances in the last 4 game weeks.
Okay.
I mean, that's good for 5.5.
I mean, let's tone it down a little bit. I don't think anyone should be starting Danny Welbeck regularly in their side. Let's calm down a little bit. But what I do like about Welbeck is, I've just moved from 4 in midfield to 5, and that meant losing Souček, who I wasn't actually too happy about losing because he was the kind of perfect player to sit on my bench, call on him when I need him. I'm looking at the options in the forwards, and I'm looking at Brewster, and there is absolutely nothing in me that wants Brewster in my team at all. So I'm thinking, well, the next level up for an actual player who plays regularly is Danny Welbeck, and I do think he is a big upgrade on Brewster. And I know money's tight and everything like that, but we've seen this week with the COVID situation in Newcastle and Villa that actually having just having one decent player on your bench, and then if you've got Dale Stevens and Mitchell or whoever, you're probably not going to get that deep into it. But if you've got one decent player on your bench, that can really help you. Yeah. And I do actually, if you're playing 5 in midfield, I do think Welbeck is the standout because he has looked good for Brighton.
You've got to pay more for the third.
A real asset than.
I was going to say for the third striker, you've got to pay more. Your Brewster's. There's no cheap Harry Kane. There's no Greenwood. All these stars of yesteryear were like 4.5. There's none of that. You've got to go for Welbeck.
Yeah, and I think now there is a necessity to really get 4 proper midfielders. And all respect to Souček, he's put in some stats, but I don't think that Souček can be 4th midfielder anymore with the template that we have now. And for effectively 0.5 or 0.6 more, you get a real. I wouldn't make it too huge, but he is a striker. He is an attacking asset, rather than just waiting for the set piece to happen. Yeah. So to me, I still favor Welbeck over Souček for the budget.
No, I think so. If you've got the money to spare, I was going to say, echo what Az was saying earlier about kind of keeping it boring. But if you want to rise up the rankings, now I've been in this situation before. A few years back, I'm usually sort of hovering around the 100k mark at this time, but not this season, and I wasn't a few seasons back. But in the last 3 game weeks, I'm trying to cut down on decisions I'm making. I'm trying to get good, decent captaincy choices in. It sounds obvious, and I'm not taking risks. So I had a look at my my game weeks, and after a wild card and a hit every week for 3 weeks, I had lots of red arrows, and I was down to 4.1 million in the rankings. Last 3 game weeks, no hits, hardly anything left on the bench. Getting Fernandes in, just playing it nice and simple, keeping Kane, that kind of thing. 3 green arrows, and I'm now 2.5 million or so in the rankings.
But the hits got you in a position to not have to make more. Right?
Arguably, the hits got me in that position, but once you're in that position, and I was thinking back to that time I was in that similar position before, and I started taking mad risks or so. It's okay to get the occasional Danny Welbeck in, but I was taking Danny Welbecks every week. Every week was a Danny Welbeck for me. And then eventually around Christmas, I just had enough, and I just stopped. And I just said, well, I've got Kane, I've got whoever else it was, Hazard at the time. I'll just captain one of them each week, and I'll just make the sensible moves, replacing injured players, that type of thing. And hey presto, I ended up in the top 100k by the end of it. So I went from 2 million to top 100k from Christmas to the end, and I was quite pleased with that. And hopefully I can do the same this season. But so that's my basic premise. But if you are a bit more maverick and you want to go for a Danny Welbeck, I've got a few more options here before we move on. Hooray, the goals imminent table is back. And what this shows here is that De Bruyne is due a goal. So De Bruyne at the moment, get him now while while his ownership is relatively low.
Say that.
I know we should be keeping Kevin De Bruyne a secret.
I haven't got him, and I'm not getting him.
But
I don't want to hear that.
Don't get him. We need to clap the ranking.
If you're going to ignore him all season, fair enough. But if you're going to get him now, because he's going to be well owned soon. Same happened with Fernandes last season when he came in. Same is happening now. I think Fernandes is up to 40% now. He was about 30% a week or so ago. De Bruyne, I didn't captain him on the Saturday, but I got his points. I went up in the rankings just by simply owning him, and that's a lovely feeling. Soon that won't happen. I'll need to captain him probably. But nevertheless, on the goals imminent table, Bamford, good fixtures coming up. Very, very good value at Leeds. Trezeguet at Villa, not sure about. McBurney. These are players if you want to take a risk. This is how maverick you are. De Bruyne is still... Yeah, De Bruyne is still trucking along there. Firmino is an option. He keeps getting really dullard, Firmino, but he does get points. Lookman, 5 million, midfield, Fulham. Really good asset. If you want to climb up the rankings, get Lookman in.
Get Coleman.
Wow. That sounds mental, but he is a brilliant enabler because Lookman enables a Fernandes, a De Bruyne, a Salah. If you're making 2 midfield moves and it involves getting Lookman as the enabler and De Bruyne as the captain, I think that's a sensible move. Aubameyang's there. Maybe Aubameyang's going to be there for all year.
Did he end up there?
But Mason Mount, unfashionable, but he's getting in the points. Yeah. And managers love him. I don't know what pictures he's got of managers, but they just love him and keep playing him. Torres at Man City. If you want to supplement your De Bruyne pick or get an alternative, Torres is favoured. And Walcott, Southampton. He's scoring for Southampton. He's playing well for Southampton. An option there. I've got some more tables just before we move on. Assist imminent. Okay, I'll just pick out some ones there. So Fernandes is due an assist apparently. So more points for him. Mahrez is there. So due an assist too. Maddison away to Sheffield United. Don't laugh. That could pay off this week definitely. And one of my targets is Target, but although he's possibly postponed this week, but he's a player I've got my eye on because he is a very cheap defender that has got clean sheet and assist potential, and his assist is imminent apparently. Barkley when he's back, Adams is still there, and Click at Leeds. So these are options there. And final one, I've got an attacking defenders one, which
Can I just quickly mention one player you've got on that table?
Oh yeah, which one? The assist imminent one.
The assist imminent one, yeah. So just obviously we haven't mentioned Jimenez and that awful injury he had. From awfulness comes potential, I guess, for FPL teams as to who's going to take his spot in the side. And it looks like it's going to be either sort of Fabio Silva, who came on but then was benched and doesn't really look ready to start, But what we might see is one of Podence or Neto
Yes.
taking that striker spot. And it's Neto. I mean, I slated Neto a little while ago. I called him an average player. He's actually been ticking along really nicely with points. He's scored points in 3 of his last 4 games, 13 points against Arsenal. Be interesting monitoring that to see who gets the nod up front against Liverpool, because that could be some real outposition.
Thanks for pulling him out there.
He started every Premier League game so far as well.
Yep.
Yeah, and last 4 game weeks had 8 chances, taken 9 corners. He's completed a quarter of his crosses, which is actually okay. Only Mahrez has completed more. I know Click at Leeds, and also Neto has had 27 crosses. Okay, yeah. I think Neto could be one to look at, definitely. He's only 5.8 when I took the picture of this. Moving to attacking defenders, just adds a few more in there. Target is there, that's why he was my target. Semedo's there, still ticking along. Robertson, I got rid of Robertson, just to fund other things, but there's nothing wrong with keeping Robertson. Cresswell, Kufau, Ayling, my man at Leeds, still not getting those assists I thought he would, but he is getting the clean sheets. So yeah, there's just some options there for people to think about. Let's move on to the next 4 game weeks. So looking at this, so Newcastle are top, but they've got their game postponed, so I'm not sure they will be topped. So for this section, we're going to look at players' target over the next 4 game weeks. We're partnered with Football Index. So there may be players to look out buying through there. That's where you can buy and sell shares in players using fancy football knowledge with the aim to make profit. So looking at the next 4 fixtures, we've got Newcastle top, Villa top, brilliant, postponed, annoying. And then you got
Brighton.
And then you've got City and Brighton. Were you talking about Danny Welbeck? Could be the Danny Welbeck time. They've got Southampton, Leicester, Fulham and Sheffield United. City have got Fulham, Manchester United, West Brom and Southampton. Then we've got Liverpool. This is why I'm keen on Salah. Got Wolves, then he's got Fulham, Tottenham at home and then Crystal Palace away. And Chelsea ticking along. So that double defensive move for Chelsea could be good. Leeds, Everton, Wolves and West Ham. But right at the bottom is Tottenham there. Arsenal and Crystal Palace I actually think are pretty good fixtures for the likes of Kane and Son. But then they've got Liverpool and Leicester. And I think, to be honest, I think Leicester's a good fixture. I'm not sure why they are bottom of this, really. Might have to have a word with the colour coding guys on this one. But it's basically Liverpool's a tough one for Tottenham. And I've also got a Whipping Boys table up as well, which shows these are the ones that have... this is last 4 game weeks, so who are the latest? Everton are the worst defence. 16 big chances created, expected goals conceded nearly 10, conceded 8 goals. They're expected to be rubbish. I almost said a word there. They're expected to be rubbish, and guess what? They are rubbish. West Brom as well have been very lucky. They've only conceded 4 goals, but they've conceded 14 big chances, and expected goals conceded is getting on for nearly 9. They've actually been lucky, or this is the way you could look at it, Johnston has been really good. So they could be an example, what we're seeing here, a bit like Sheffield United. Defence isn't that great, but they've got a great goalkeeper behind them. It's David James at Portsmouth type stuff. Schwarzer at Fulham. It's that kind of thing we're going for there. Leicester, really bad defence at the moment. Sheffield United are whipping boy status. And West Ham only conceded 3 goals, but their big chances conceded is 9. That may indicate Fabianski's marvellous. It may indicate that they're due a whipping soon. And then the Southampton there, and that's because when they come against quality, they do crumble a little. Leeds now have Phillips back, so I'm expecting Leeds to move down that table, but they could be one to target. And I've just mentioned Chelsea there, 2 big chances conceded, same as Manchester United. Their expected goals conceded barely 2, and their goals conceded 1. Chelsea are really good defensively at the moment. And we can see they've got good fixtures. So, Karam, looking at that, I mean, does that give you any thoughts, going forward?
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, in terms of the table, Man City is still really up there offensively and defensively. And I still think that, I still wish to nail the 3 players I want, because the triple up on City is one of the ways that we can really... climb up the rankings, should we get the right ones. Brighton has good fixtures as well. I think there are good chances for their assets against, especially against Fulham and Sheffield in a couple of game weeks time. Chelsea is one I like, and I, I'm starting to get lost between the main attacking assets that I want. Chilwell, we all want him. We all need to have him. But which of the attacking ones? Pulisic is back, but what does that mean for Werner? Would he be rotated directly with Werner? Would he mean that Werner is up top? Ziyech, does he have competition with anybody else? He's not taking nicely in the last two. He has shown that he is capable of, but not yet. So I really want to see more attacking threat from Chelsea, and otherwise Ziyech might be someone to go for Salah as part of a big move. Maybe Vardy for me to somebody else, and then Ziyech to Salah. But yeah, I think those are the teams to look out for. I still also think if you have Justin, unless there are some concrete news on Ricardo, so defense for Leicester, they might get something in the next two. But I think it's time. Their time is up.
Yeah,
for the defenders.
That's what I mentioned. Matt Target. Philip's still got good fixtures. It's not them with the COVID issue. It's because of the Newcastle issue. He is my top target because he is a really good Justin replacement. Yeah. I've used my wild cards. I have another one, obviously, next half of the season. But Villa are going to be getting some double game weeks at some point, and he's got assist potential. So yeah, I think as you rightly point out, Justin could be on the verge of losing his place because Ricardo will be back. Az, what do you reckon? Looking at that, giving you any ideas for the next few game weeks?
Yeah, I mean, not a huge amount extra to add. I mean, I just like Chelsea's fixtures from a defensive double up point of view. The fact that they're barely conceding any goals, and the fact that their fixtures look like they're going to get another couple of clean sheets in those two. So yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this might be an opportunity to move Martinez out for Mendy. I do also really like the Reece James double up. I think you can be put off because you're doubling up on a defence, but actually, if you look at the 5 million defender price bracket, just isolated from everything else, Reece James is by far the strongest option in that bracket. I mean, his potential for outscoring his 5 million 5.1 tag is crazy, really, when you see how attacking he is and how many clean sheets they get. So he's a consideration for me. I am half tempted just to dodge all the City defenders and not get Diaz and worry about him every week and all that, and just get Reece James. I think he comes with his own set of rotation potential with as Plaqueta there, but I think his upside is higher than Diaz. Diaz is going to keep clean sheets and get sixes, but it might be Reece James who gets some big hauls coming up. So yeah, I like Chelsea. I think if you're to climb the ranks, the defensive double up, like we mentioned earlier, is a good one.
Yeah, I do. I mean, if it was a move I could make there, I would definitely get, because there's still really great value there. Mendy, I usually get really cheap goalkeepers, but 5.1 I think is really good value for Mendy. He's got the most clean sheets so far, and he hasn't even played all the matches. He's really good. I really like what's happened with the Chelsea defence. They're starting to be really nice and reliable. I just want to point out that before we move on to our team reveals, that Football Index is something you can sign up to today. They've got a 7-day £500 money back guarantee, and there's a link in the description below as well. It's for 18 plus only. Please gamble responsibly, and you can check out begambleaware.org, and there's a link for that in the description as well. Let's move on to our plan. So we've pretty much spoken about what we're going to be doing. For the benefit of the podcast listeners, I've got Martinez, who will become probably Meslier or McCarthy, or he could even become Johnston, because I do like a good goalkeeper in a rubbish defence. Justin, Chilwell and Lamptey. I think Justin's still good for this week or so. He could also be moved to a left centre back. They play 5 at the back, and it could be more Sionju coming back that could scupper him rather than Ricardo. So yeah, I've got a bit of time. In midfield I've got Souček, De Bruyne and Fernandes. Once again, captain, vice captain, which one will I go with? Ooh, they probably end up scoring exactly the same, which will be brilliant. Got Sterling, who's probably going to become Salah. I'm looking at the live comments as we're streaming. I haven't noticed any Sterling has scored. I've seen a few.
It's Curtis Jones who scored for Liverpool.
Yeah, and I've seen more Sterling missed that, or Sterling 1-on-1 and misses or whatever. These are not good signs for me. Calvert-Lewin, great. Kane, great. Bamford, great. And I've got a bench of one player, Ayling. So yeah, I'm probably gonna take a hit. Goalkeeper, Salah in for Sterling. That's me.
Solid.
So yeah, Karam. Let's have a look at your team. You've got Martinez, Chilwell, Cancelo, who you said probably going to change, Diaz, Ziyech, Grealish, Fernandes, De Bruyne, captain, Vardy, Watkins, Calvert-Lewin, and then a bench with Kilman, Lewis, Riedewald, and Forster. So yeah, you've got possibly some hits to think about.
Yeah. I'm actually counting how many players I have actually for next game week. So I have 8 plus Kilman if he plays, including Cancelo if he plays. So I'm really in difficult situation.
Yeah.
I still have to decide really what to do with my transfers. I've got 2 free transfers, thankfully.
Good.
That will ease things a bit. I'm looking at Man City games so far, and it's 0-0, which means that we are winning the group, but it means that everybody on the pitch will be benched next weekend.
Yeah.
SofaScore says Zinchenko is the best player so far, so that's not good. And I think there are 2 scenarios probably for free is to do Watkins to Welbeck and follow my differential pick, and make Cancelo to Walker. That's one possibility. And I probably will do a goalkeeper transfer. I'm still not sure really. I might take the nil or do something about Lewis, Kilman, and get one of the Charlie Tyler or Webster. Those players who can play 90 minutes week in, week out. The other possibility actually could be the more obvious one, Watkins to Bamford, and get the funds by doing Cancelo to Reece James and follow the
that sounds good.
double up.
You
that
have actually
looks
got,
good, yeah.
Yeah, you've actually got, this could be an opportunity.
But
and you having 2 free transfers is really good.
Yeah, indeed, and always the third transfer for a hit might effectively be a -2 unless he gets a red card or something. So I might do something around the bench or Martinez potentially. I still have to decide really.
Yeah.
But yeah, KDB captain. Not even thinking about it.
There's going to be a lot of hits this week, and for those that haven't taken hits, they might not be so fully engaged. They might just do nothing and then look in shock when
get surprised what's happening.
Wilson, Grealish aren't playing. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of bench points coming on. So rough with the smooth next week's going to be a corker, I think. As let's move on to your team. For the benefit of those listening to the podcast, you have Martinez, Chilwell, Semedo, Lamptey, 3-5-2, Fernandes, Son, Ziyech, Grealish, Jota, Vardy currently captain, very wise, and Calvert-Lewin, Mbappe, Ayling, Mitchell, and Forster. So you got half a bench. So yeah, you could do nothing if you wanted.
Well, let me just paint the picture. You've seen Dodgeball and Average Joe's, the greatest underdog, the true underdog story. Obviously, Rocky. We've had Leicester winning the Premier League, but have you ever seen Mopé coming off the back of a missed penalty and a -1 point? Me saying, "Oh, there is no way he's ever playing for my team again." And now Grealish is out, and Mopé is gonna
have to play him,
flying back in.
He's playing Southampton
if he's fit. I mean, he did go off with his clutching his hamstring, so that's a bit of a concern.
Southampton crumble against quality.
I mean, if Mopé's fit and he gets a goal in that game, I think that will be one of my greatest ever FPL moments. I must be the only person in FPL to still have Mopé. But yeah, I mean, looking at my team, obviously I've got no City, so that's a problem. And my biggest weakness, I think, in my whole squad is probably Semedo. So I can rectify that quite easily just by doing Semedo to a Man City defender. But I don't know which one to get. So that's a bit of an issue. I was all set to get Diaz, and then I saw him in the lineup tonight, and I thought, I'm not too sure about that. I might just leave Semedo, which I really want to get rid of him, but I might just leave him this week and just do ZH to Mahrez. It just gives me some sitter cover. It gives me an attacking player, and I'd probably captain him as well now he's had the benching. So risky, but I think he's as good a pick as anyone this week, given that he has just scored the hat trick and he's rested tonight.
Well, have a listen to what David was saying on the captaincy video, and you'll just keep your captaincy armband on Vardy, because this is just so Vardy. It's the most Vardy match we've found.
I don't actually think that starting Semedo is really a bad idea. Liverpool going forward haven't looked really like superior in the last couple of games, and they are, from what I see here, they are struggling against Ajax. They scored only 1 goal so far.
He just offers nothing. He just offers nothing going forward.
Yeah, but it could be one of the nil-nil games, right? You know what I mean? Wolves could go back to the 3 at the back. And just I think if I remember correctly,
I thought that with Arsenal, I thought that was going to be a 0-0.
Yeah,
he's just a frustrating player that I want rid of, and Liverpool away seems a good week to get rid of him. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. But I think Semedo to Diaz, even for a hit, would have probably paid for itself this week. But I'm just not confident enough that Diaz is going to start.
Are you switching Martinez? I don't remember what you said.
No, I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so. No, I mean, if I did, I'd probably go for Mendy. But Villa have still got a good run of games coming up, and we don't really know when this game's going to get rescheduled for.
If I was in your position and I've got no money spare for the moves I want to do, so I can't go above a Martinez. I can't upgrade Steer to a 4.5, but you can. If you've got the money, I would just keep Martinez, bench him, and upgrade Jed Steer, because you're not playing a goalkeeper.
I need
anyway.
the cash.
If you need
the cash, if I'm looking, if I'm getting salary, it's a bit like you know, not really being able to make luxury moves like that. If I'm getting in Salah, in a week for the Fulham game, I kind of need all the cash that I can get. So it's not really an option. I mean, Martinez has been getting 0s and 1s anyway.
I was looking at my team and I was thinking, who is, what are the weak links? Who isn't performing? And it's him, because he's not getting the saves. In a team like Villa, I want save points. I want loads of save points. I want them, if they're going to concede, I want him to be racking up, 5, 6, 9 even saves to get those save points, but he's not getting them. Before we go, I just want to remind people of a couple of things. Firstly, the Newcastle Villa game is off on Friday. We don't know if it's going to be rescheduled to game week 11, but there's a new deadline. It's Saturday morning, so please be aware of that. Do have a look on the FPL site. They'll have the new deadline on there, so that's something to be aware of. The second one is, a few people have been saying, where have we got our stats from? Well, we've got it right at the top of the screen from Fantasy Football Scout, because that's where we're from. And there's lots and lots of stats in the members area there. We've got the members benefits up on the screen there. Loads of stuff on there. Lots of expected goal stats, and there's a rate my team tool and comparison tools, and all those types of things. Do have a look at that. Hopefully that will help you secure good alternatives to the Holy Trinity, get to the Holy Trinity, rise up the rankings, and understand Pep Roulette and all those other things we've been discussing today. But for now, it's a goodbye from me.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, all.